Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Ah, fantastic. Hello. So, hi from London. I'm sitting in central London. Where are you? In Ukraine. I'd love to say your name, but I actually can't read it. Lorena, Larsa, Ukraine. Oh, from Brazil, Lithuania, Kiev. I've still to go to Kiev. Russia. Hello, hello, welcome. Albania. Fantastic. Hello. Great. Well, my name is Imogen Wyllie. Hi from Poland, Karolina, Agnieszka. My name is Imogen. I'm a portfolio manager with Pearson, so publisher, really. I work with the test prep team and with the general adult team. And the most recent course that we've published is Gold Experience, which you may have seen. Just before we get started, hi Ludmila from Ukraine as well, great. Before we get started, just to let you know that you will receive a certificate of attendance within a week or so of the session. And also to let you know that the session is being recorded. So along with the certificate, you'll get a link to the webinar, to the recording. So if you want to watch back, you can. Please do use the chat. And if you've got questions along the way, I'll try to answer them, but I might not see them. So if I don't answer it, then we'll have a section for questions at the end. So just ask them again then. Great. Well, it's only just passed, but I think we'll just get started straight away. The aim today is to recap the 6 steps to exam success series that we've been putting on over the past few weeks, and then look at how our teenage exam course Gold Experience can help you with all of these steps. So I think let's just dive straight in, excuse me, and we'll try and recap the steps that we had. So over the past weeks, we've had a mixture of authors and teacher trainers and teachers talking about all of these things. So first of all, the importance of knowing the exam, understanding what it is that your students are aiming for. Then balancing your teaching. So trying to make sure you're catering for all of your student needs and not only that exam passing element. Monitoring progress and linked to that, giving feedback. Motivating your students, and of course how you as a teacher can enjoy your course. And then we had an extra step on mindfulness for pre-exam stress, so helping students stay calm and in the right mindset for an exam. This is a lot of things for you as teachers to have to focus on and to understand. So of course it's helpful to have a bit of support. So you could think of a good course book as a kind of handrail up these stairs. So some kind of support to help you along the way. We're going to talk today about Gold Experience, which is a course for secondary or high school age students who want to learn English, develop life skills, and prepare for the Cambridge exams along the way. The 8 levels of this course take students all the way from A1 to C1. You'll see the levels on the right here are the exam levels. So A2 key for schools, B1 preliminary for schools, B2 first for schools, and C1 advanced for schools. And then the titles on the left are the halfway levels, the plus levels, which help to bridge the gap between the levels. So from B2 to C1, we all know that that's a lot of study to move from one to the other. So the B2 plus will help move students on. So before we get started, let's have a little think about who you are. Hi from Latvia. Hi, Laura. And what kind of teaching scenario you're in. So I'm going to click here, which hopefully will take us to a survey. The question is, which kind of institution do you teach in? Is it if people are starting to answer already, please click away. If you teach in more than one, click more than one, please. So a state full curriculum school, that could be a primary or secondary, state school, private school, private language school, so it's only languages that are taught, or a university or FE college. And then some people have private students as well. Great. Just another couple of seconds for people to answer. Okay, so most people then are teaching in a full curriculum school, some private students and a little bit of PLS. Great, okay. Then the next question is who your students are, or specifically what kind of age they are. So again, let's have a little poll. I close that. Go to this one. There we go. So again, can you click and let me know what sort of age your students are? Again, if you teach more than one of these, click anyone that you regularly teach. Okay, great. So that's a nice mix then. So some primary school, some under 11, across the spectrum of teens, most mid-teen, and then a few with adult. Brilliant. Thank you. I'll end share results. Good. So choosing the right course, we have, over the past few weeks, we've had examples from both Gold and Gold Experience. So the question is, what's the difference and which one is right for your students? So if we look at these two courses, Gold Experience is specifically designed for teens. So A1 would be appropriate for kind of 11 to 13, maybe a little bit younger, upper primary possibly. B2, so this level on screen, maybe sort of 14 to 17. Again, you can use it outside of these, but these are the age ranges that we had in mind when writing. Maybe 14 to 17-year-olds, and then C1, the top level, would be sort of 16 to 19-year-olds, so students who are getting ready for university. Gold, on the other hand, is written for, we say young adults, so in mind we had people who were sort of 17 to 22, so very top of school and university, but it could absolutely be used with anyone 16 and up, so into adult and from sort of upper secondary. In terms of content, the difference is that Gold Experience is designed so that it can really be used in a full curriculum school context. So it contains a lot more general English material, the sorts of things that you'd find in a regular secondary course. So projects and videos and things like that. Gold is designed as an exam course, a communicative exam course, so it has lots of discussion, but it's more exclusively focused on test prep than Gold Experience. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea about which would be suitable for your students. I think for most of you, Gold Experience would be the right one. Next week, I think my colleague Jo Hunter will be talking about Gold for adults. So back to the 6 steps. Today we're going to talk about how each of these comes through in the course book. Step 1 then is understand the exam. You can't underestimate the importance of this, both for you as teachers and also for students. You need to make sure that the information you're getting from your materials is reliable and trustworthy and as complete as it can be. So with Gold Experience, well, with any of our courses actually, test prep courses, you can have confidence that our authors are all experienced ELT professionals. They all have decades of teaching and training and exam experience between them. When we're working on a course like this, we tend to put together author teams on each level where at least one of the authors is an exam expert, so works on the exam, is an item writer, examiner. Often they're even a chair of a paper, so they're involved in setting the exams. They have a lot of experience. We also, on each level, have an exam consultant, so somebody whose only job is to read the material and comment on how accurate it is compared to the actual exam. Again, these people are people who work on the exam itself. And then the in-house team have all been teachers themselves. Pretty much everybody has taught a lot of exam courses as well. So you can be confident that the team are speaking from a point of knowledge, if you like. Can I just check, there's a couple of people saying no sound. Can I just check that most of you can hear me? And so this is a technology problem with individuals and not the system as a whole? Can you just type yes if you can hear me, please? Okay, that's good. Great. I confirm, I think the sound issue is on your end. Sorry. Okay, thanks for that. We'll carry on. Yes. So with Gold Experience, and any good exam course actually, you'll have a lot of different places for information about the exam. So the first thing would be a quick overview of the exam. In Gold Experience, you'll find that in the workbook and also in the exam practice book. This is the page, basically it's a quick overview of the exam, each of the papers, what is the format and what is the task focus. That's just a quick reference for you and for the students so they can always refer back and know what they're working towards. For more detailed information, there are different places to go. This is an example of the guidance in the exam practice book. Now, the exam practice book goes with each of the exam levels, so A2, B1, B2 and C1. The book has 2 tests. The first test includes lots of guidance for each of the papers. So here we've got about the paper, so again a little bit about each of the parts, how long the paper is, the time, and then step-by-step strategies of how to approach each task. The test itself in test 1 also has tips to guide students to how to do each of the questions. And then the second test is clean, so the students can do it as a mock exam and get a realistic experience. In addition, at the back of the exam practice book and of the student's book, you'll find an exam file for the speaking and for the writing part. So this gives you detailed help, detailed guidance for all of the productive tasks. So again, you've got an overview, an example task, breaking the task down, giving some useful language that you could use in each of the parts. In the writing for each genre, there's a model answer, along with some notes on what makes this a good answer. So lots of useful resources. When it comes to practice, the course has exam style practice in all of the components really. So in the course book, in the workbook, in the photocopyables, in the exam practice book, and in the assessment package. So that students are going to meet the tasks again and again and again, become very familiar with them. In this edition of Gold Experience, we have added this little E symbol, E for exam. So in the course book page, you always know exactly which task is basically the exam task. A little something to make your lives easier and so that the students are aware of the relevance of the course. In the teacher's notes, to go alongside those, whenever you have an exam task, you have a little section like this. So this tells you how close this coursebook task is to an actual Cambridge task. So in this example, it says the reading text does not have a detailed lead-in in the exam, but we have one here to add interest and to engage the students. So that's one difference. Also in the actual exam, in the first paragraph, you would not have a gap sentence, but we do here for space issues. So again, it tells you exactly how it's different so that you as a teacher are informed and aware. There's also extensive notes for the exam tip in the teacher's book. So it'll guide you through how to use the tip and the types of things that you could do. For example, if you have a strong class, how to stretch them, maybe if you need to add some more. So lots and lots of guidance again. For more general guidance, the introduction to the teacher's book has, I think, 5 different sections on classroom teaching ideas. So the one I'm showing you here is how to teach for exams. This is 3 pages of general tips. So it starts with what do teachers need to consider. So if you're an exam teacher, excuse me, what are the sorts of things you should have in your mind and how can you go about doing them or learning them or finding this out. Then we have a section on how does Gold Experience help you do that. So it will guide you to specific parts of the course. And then finally, the heading's covered up, but some general teaching tips. So general ideas of how you can adapt content to be more exam specific if you want to. So if you want to draw text from somewhere, what kind of activities can you do? The other classroom teaching ideas, apart from the exam ones, there's a spread on how to flip the classroom, how to teach with projects, how to teach using readers, what else? Useful things that you might want to do depending on the class that you have. Assessing, when we speak to teachers about things they find tricky or things that they would like help with, actually assessment is quite a big one. So one of the resources that you'll find is a success criteria. Again, this is in the teacher's book introduction and then also online in the teacher's resources. For each of the speaking and each of the writing genres, you have a grid like this. It takes each of the headings that the exam will mark against, so grammar, vocabulary, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication, and breaks it down for the part or for the genre in what a different type of pass would look like. So we know that passing can actually be quite wide these days. Since Cambridge's last updates, it's actually been much, much wider, the types of pass mark you can get. So here are the types of things that a student might include to get a pass, to get a good pass, and to get a fantastic pass where you're kind of edging into the next CEFR bracket. So this is something that you can keep for yourself as a teacher to mark, or you can share with your students beforehand and have them use this as a tool to write better. And then finally, in terms of understanding the exam, please do make sure that you go to the Cambridge website and download their handbook. There's all sorts of useful information there as well, plus a practice test. Okay, step 2. Balancing your teaching. So every classroom is different and learners have different needs. It's really important for you as a teacher to understand what your students' goals are. Some of these may be set by your school, or it might depend on the specific students enrolled in your class. The kinds of things that you'll want to know are all of the students going to take the Cambridge exam or just some? So are you talking, when you talk about exam specific stuff, are you talking to everyone or just a few, a subset of the students in the class? Are there other exams that they're preparing for? So are there your school exams or are there state exams? University entrance perhaps? What other needs do they have for English? So do they need to get into university? Do they want to be able to browse the internet online in English? Do they want to watch Netflix without the subtitles? Do they want to be able to chat to people when they're playing Minecraft or other online games? What is it that they actually want to use English for? And then also, do they have any special educational needs. So things like dyslexia or attention issues, or is there anything that you as a teacher should really be aware of? So these are things that you would just want to ask them, possibly before class, possibly on day one. And then, of course, when you talk about specific language needs, you can ask them, or you could give them a diagnostic test. So you'll find a diagnostic test for Gold Experience in the assessment package. You may have one that you use for your school as standard as well. So once you have all of that information, then you need to think about the time available and start to tailor your teaching. So over to you, because I need to drink some water. You have all of these components available to you. What different ways might you want to tailor your classes? What kinds of things do you do currently? Could you just pop a couple of ideas in the chat box, please? Let me give you a specific scenario. That was a very open question, actually. So your class, about 50% of students will take the exam, 50% won't. Students are really keen to, what should we say? You have a couple of students with dyslexia, and your students are prone to distraction. So keeping them engaged is very important. There we go. What kinds of things would you use or not use, or use differently with different students? I can see lots of people are typing. Okay, we have dyslexia. Oh, I think the chat's gone funny. So what would you do with students with dyslexia? Is there anything that you could do differently for those students? Nina? Oh, Lorena, you're very lucky teaching one-on-one, so every class is tailored then. That's perfect. Nice. Different reading and writing formats. Okay, I see. Making things more visual. Great. Okay. Well, here's some thoughts on the types of things that you can do, selecting material differently. So for those students who are classes where some students are taking the exam, some not, maybe you only give those exam students the exam practice books, have students do different types of homework depending on their need. You could extend the project across the whole unit rather than just doing them in one class or skipping over them if you have more the students with more of a 21st century skills need. You'll find tips for that in the teacher's book. Working with dialogues and more visually, that's great. When we were talking about dyslexia then, we've talked about, so the final point here, you'll find, you'll have things that you want to do yourself, of course, but for Gold Experience, there are dyslexia-friendly tests in the assessment package. So that has both the activity types adapted plus also the layout. So there are words you can adapt further if you want, but that will help you. There are things like the audios are all recorded for the readings, so you can click play for those students and that will help them understand the longer texts. There are other ways to provide accessible content as well. One thing that will be a useful tool if you're using this course is, again, in the teacher's book introduction, there's a page called Teaching Pathways. Now this has, the first section is all of the print components and all of the digital components. And then we have different columns depending on the type of thing that you might want to focus on in class. So Yeah, the Wider World one was one of the first ones to come out with the SL tests, Nina. That's great. So the core material is what we would recommend everybody does. And then depending on the type of thing that you want to focus on with your class or with specific students, this is where you can find additional material that would help with that. So it's just a little bit of help to kind of tailor the course a little bit more. Again, you might want to do some with specific students and not the whole class. So that's in the Teacher's Book Introduction and also in the Teacher's Resources online. Okay, step 3, giving feedback. So we know from all of the research from, I mean, you'll have heard the name John Hattie, all the researchers say that feedback and quality feedback is one of the most effective teaching tools there is. Behind number 1, which is good teacher, so that's well done you. We also know that preparing feedback is one of the most time-consuming parts of a teacher's life. So thinking about the sorts of things that you really have to spend time on and those that you don't is, I think, very useful. So first of all, which of these do you think that it's not so essential for you to look at individually? Which things could you have students mark themselves, or could you do very quickly for feedback? Vocab? Yeah. Typically people say vocabulary, to a certain extent grammar, yeah, the listening and reading, basically anything where there's a concrete answer, right? So these are the things where you can tell the students whether they got it right or wrong, they can mark themselves, but you don't really have to spend a lot of time. Obviously, this is much easier if you're going to use a digital homework tool. So in Goal Experience, it's online practice on the Pearson English portal. Here, the student homework is marked automatically, apart from the writing, which they would write and hand to you. But if you don't set that, then it's marked automatically. So then you would see a score like this, and you can simply decide who you need to pay attention to and who is doing fine. Depending on your student goal, depending on your class, basically, you may want to pay attention to those who are doing extremely well and give them a little bit more. Or you might want to really just focus on the students like this student 5 who's only scored 26%, and you can speak to them and find out why. Do they have a problem at home? Did they not understand? Did they not have time? And then work out whether it's a question of remediating on the work or whether it's something else. So we're not saying that this does everything for you, but it helps you focus where you spend your time. Another thing with the Goal Experience is the student app. Again, this is all automated. The app comes with all of the students' books. So when they open the front cover, there's a little QR code inside, and when they scan that, they'll be taken to the app on their phones, and that will unlock the content. They'll have to download the app from the iStore or the Google Play, depending on whether they're Apple or Android. But the QR code inside the student's book will take them directly to the content. So this is a self-study app. It's designed, it only practices sort of drill activities of the vocabulary from the course book. So it's not teaching anything new. You will not have students coming in and saying, please miss, the app said this. It's designed to be completely self-study. In fact, teachers don't even see what their students are doing. So the students can repeat it as many times as they want. They don't have to worry about oversight from the teacher. They're completely self-serving on that. If you wanted to, you could set up class competitions and have people report what they've been doing in class, but essentially it's self-study. At the upper levels, so B1 plus to C1, it's vocabulary, where the levels where we think that students are really expanding vocabulary and trying to internalize it is the most important thing. At the lower levels, so A1 to B1, it also includes grammar. So where grammar is quite new, and we've got some drill practice of grammar as well. So yes, gadget savvy students will love it. So that's kind of automatic digital things. If, however, you are using the print workbook, it's fine. You have many choices about how you approach homework. So yeah, you could take in all the books and mark them personally, or you can pass responsibility to the students. So the students will know that there's a unit, assuming you're going to give the unit test, they will know that they've got a test coming up at the end of the unit, and that's where you'll be looking. So for the homework, why not give them the answer key? Why not ask them to take responsibility? You can either give them the whole answer key or sections after you set it. You'll find a standalone answer key in the teacher's resource materials, so you'll have that there. If you have time in class, you can have them correct in groups, and that way they can help each other with anything that was tricky. And then again, the goal is to identify the students who need help or who need extensions. So you're always going to ask them, you know, who got full marks, who got whatever, or whatever it is, however it is that you get feedback. Again, we're not suggesting that you don't monitor. That is important. Okay, so these are the types of things that probably don't need a lot of teacher input. Which ones do you think do? Where do you have to have input to give feedback? Writing and speaking? Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Great, okay. Writing, yeah. Writing, yeah. Okay. So for these, I think the important thing is trying to make sure that the feedback you give, students take and do something with, rather than kind of looking at it and then just putting it in a folder. So the goal then is, some people saying grammar as well. Yeah, if you think that that's essential for your students, then that too. The goal is to make that feedback active, basically. So the first thing is student expectations. Again, make sure that your students know what they're going to be marked again when they come to it. The image on the screen, we saw this before, this is the student speaking criteria, success criteria. Again, this is in the teacher's book introduction or the online teacher's resources. Students can see what would be expected to get a basic, a good, and a fantastic mark in each of the different criteria, different categories. So you could give this to them before they write, and then they can use that as a framework. Once they've written, you could have them look at it again against their writing and say, okay, well, where do you think you've marked? Where do you think you've scored? Alternatively, you could have them even more involved. Rather than using this, you can keep that as a backup, as help for you, and have the students set their own goals. So you can work through a task with them and say, okay, for this task, what do you think is going to be important? What do you think would get the best mark? And put together the criteria with your students. And then again, they will know what's expected and they can look at their material against that afterwards. I'm a big believer that it's useful and important for students to understand the value of feedback, and varying self-feedback and peer feedback and teacher feedback, I think, is an extremely good way of doing this. It makes sure they're paying attention. It trains them in giving feedback, which I think makes people receive the feedback better. And it helps them be able to assess their own work more accurately. To help with this, Goal Experience has, the second edition has a new strand designed to help people become independent learners. It's called Independent Learning. So this on the screen, these are three columns from the first 3 units of B2, I think this one is. So at the end of Unit 1, there's a video lesson, and then there's an independent learning just before the end of unit check. So in Unit 1, they're introduced to self-assessment, different types, how they can do it. Second one, giving feedback. Third one, assessing skills, and then it goes on to assessing vocabulary, grammar. There's basically a whole syllabus to help students learn study skills and learn to take responsibility for their own learning. Helps them understand the purpose of feedback, the different kinds that there are, and how that benefits them. We're running quite short of time. So I'll move on slightly. So I wanted to talk about active feedback. So you give feedback, so then we need to try and do some sort of activity that will help students to improve on these things. So with speaking, these are some types of things that you could do to help your students. So if you've got feedback for students that actually they need to be a bit more fluent, then we could look at games around encouraging students to speak without worrying about errors. So things like just a minute, so just speak for a minute, or 2 truths and a lie, where they're thinking about other things and not the content itself and not how they're saying it. Earlier today, somebody was suggesting 4-2-1 for this, where you give people a topic and you ask them to speak for 4 minutes and then repeat it for 2 minutes and then repeat it in 1 minute. So this helps train them to cut out redundancy and hesitation and speak more concisely. Just a quick minute, have a read, and do you have any other suggestions for activities to help with this kind of feedback? Or if there's any that don't make sense, let me know and we'll talk through them. Giving students language formulae to help introduce ideas. Yeah, so language support when they're thinking about it. Yeah, no, that's nice. I think that would come in with it, with the hesitation, giving them time to think about things. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so summarizing basically. Yeah, summarizing is a great training actually, because the content, the things that they will say is already there. And they have to think about how to phrase it concisely. Nice. One of the things about these ideas are all about how supportive they are. So, for example, if you're talking about accuracy, it's overwhelming to have too much. So just pick one area and giving the student the opportunity to correct it so they think about how it should have been done. And then move on, carry on. So giving the speaker sort of the opportunity to automate self-correction. And again, with the hesitation one, rerunning an activity and asking the listening student to look for improvement, I think is really nice. It's supportive. It focuses on the positive improvement. Writing, use of English, listening, reading. Again, there are just a few thoughts, ideas there. If you have any questions about them or alternative ideas, then let's just give you a couple of minutes to think about it or to add them to the chat. Yeah, thanks, Lorena. With listening and reading, a lot of the questions in the Cambridge exams are around paraphrasing. So anything that helps them think about different ways of saying the same thing is really, really useful. Yeah. Okay, I think we'll move on. So step 4 was monitor progress. There are different things that you will want to monitor. So all of this concrete and actionable feedback that you're giving should help students progress. You can monitor this in many different ways, I'm sure you do, and against different things. So if the majority of your students are going to take the exam, then you could track their progress against actual exams. So give them a real practice exam at the start of the course and through the course and then at the end. And hopefully, assuming you're using full practice exams and not ones that are levelled to a course, then you should see the scores go up as they progress. For gold experience, as I say, there are 2 in the exam practice book, plus 1 in the workbook, plus 1 in the assessment package. The students also, as we said, encounter the exam tasks multiple times within the contents of the course book, the workbook, assessment pack. So some teachers I know put together a chart of every time a student meets the different parts, the date that they saw it, where it was, and the score that they got. Now, of course, you have to remember that in a course book, we would expect the students to get quite high marks because it's not an exam scenario. Perhaps a use of English is dealing with language that they've just been taught. So it's less realistic, but it's definitely worth doing. You can also sort of track their comfort level with the task itself. That I would expect to go up. So you can easily make up a grade for this kind of thing. In terms of the English language content, if you are using the online practice, then you'll have a student performance area where you can see how students are performing throughout the course. Each student will have their own scores, but they won't see the rest of the classes, obviously. So for you as a teacher, you'll have the class as a whole up here, and then each student going down. You can click the little arrow to drill into each student and see them by skill. And then you can drill down and down and down and down. So this means that you can easily identify students who are at risk for whatever reason. They're not participating or they're not managing to reach the scores. And you can also identify students who you think could be pushed a little bit further. There's also the assessment package. Now in Gold Experience, this is not digital because our research with teachers said that nobody uses the digital version anyway. Everybody does paper tests in class. So there's an assessment package in the teachers' resources. It's a very extensive package and is designed to be as flexible as possible. So it means that you can check your students after every unit and then check their ongoing retention after every 3 units. After every unit, you've got language tests, so testing the vocab and the grammar taught, but also a skills test, so there'll be a listening and a reading, and also a dictation. This is the sort of task that's found in the PTE general exams. It's incredibly good at discriminating between students. It's very, very effective as a testing tool. So those are in every unit test, and the review tests again have language, and then they do the productive tasks, so writing and speaking. Most of the tests have A/B versions, so to prevent cheating, really. And then most of them also have a C test for ones that are adapted specifically for students with dyslexia. As I mentioned earlier, the tasks themselves are adaptive, so broken down a little bit more, and the layout's different as well. Okay. So step 5, I realise we're running short of time. Step 5, motivate students. Again, our research and also the literature that we all, I'm sure, read, students are generally more motivated when they have very specific goals, they know what they're working towards, they're interested in the content, the challenge is at an appropriate level, so they have to work for it, but it's not too hard, and they have the opportunity to bring themselves into the classroom. This is exactly what we've tried to do throughout the course. So you'll hopefully find that the content in God Experience is actually intrinsically interesting. So the sorts of things that students would want to read about themselves. But things that you can do are ensuring clear goals. So at different levels, so making sure that students have a goal for the whole course. Okay, it's past the exam, but what else do they want to do? Do they have general English goals? So we talked earlier about, do they want to talk to their friends online? You know, what is it that they want to use English for? Then at each lesson, make sure that they know what the goal is. You'll find the unit openers in Gold Experience have the goals on one page. So for each lesson, it's broken down. This is the reading example. You see what the topic is, and then what the skill that they're working on is, and then if there's an exam task, what that exam task is. So in this case, it's the reading multiple matching. I think it's also useful to have students revisit goals regularly. So for example, after every unit, or you might do it after every review test, have them think about, okay, well, what would you like to improve on in the next unit, in the next month, whatever. So yes, there'll be specific content they're trying to learn, grammar points, whatever, but maybe there's an overarching thing. Okay, this month I'm going to focus on speaking fluently. This month I'm going to focus on actually completing my homework. It could be any number of things. So we talked about interesting and relevant content. Gold Experience has got a huge amount of exam content, but we've tried to make sure that it's sort of subtle, so it's not constant and they're not constantly having to deal with it. All the topics and texts we think are very interesting. The team and I, basically, if we didn't enjoy reading about them, they didn't go in the book. We had a team reviewer on every level, so they were reviewing and giving us feedback both on, is this interesting, but also on things like the listening scripts, where we have written scripts. Is that something that a teenager today would say, or is it, is it now, is it real? Which is very useful. There's a lot of different multimedia. So for example, in GXP, we've got 2 different types of videos. This one here is an example of the authentic broadcasting. So each unit at the end has a video lesson built around about 3-minute clip, taken from TV. So lots of different genres. There's cooking programs, there's nature, there's silly prank show. There's all sorts of different genres. Hopefully interesting for not only students. Oksana, yes. So then we also have these ones, which are grammar vox pops. Not every grammar topic is suitable, but where a grammar topic is the sort of thing that we can ask a question and people would naturally say, then we went out into, well, at the upper levels, the streets of London, and the lower levels, we went into schools to get students of the right age and asked questions that we thought they might answer in specific grammar points. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. So you'll find authentic accents, real people, real things that they've said in answer to questions. And where we've done this, then the grammar activities are built around these videos. So the rubric for the instruction for them will say listen or watch. That means that you can either use the video, or if you're not set up for that day, you can just use the audio, and it'll be just a normal listening. So these are the 2 types of video we have. This one is our grammar PowerPoint presentation. So for every grammar point, so 2 in every unit, we have a grammar PowerPoint presentation. It is exactly that. It's literally PowerPoint. So it's not part of the teacher toolkit, it's completely separate. You download them from the teacher's resources. They're PowerPoint. That's it. So you can adapt them, you can edit them, make them suitable for your students if you want to. They basically work through a presentation option, so a way that you could present this grammar point piece by piece, clickable, click, click, click to build up. And then at the end, there are some additional questions that you could use with your class as a whole. So we've prepared these as if you as a teacher are going to use them. But of course, if you want to try out a flipped classroom approach, you could email them or give them to your students somehow and ask them to work through them in their own time and then come to class with questions. And then you could do more communicative work around the grammar point together, if that's something you want to try. Something else? At the bottom of most of the pages, we have what we've called fun footers. We know that teenagers' minds drift. It's just a fact. So rather than them drifting off to their phones or whatever, we've tried to provide a little piece of interesting English for them to drift to. So it might be a piece of language or a quote, or sometimes there's a puzzle, or different types of things that just are a little piece of interesting knowledge. You can refer to them in class, or you don't have to. You can just leave them entirely for students to notice. It's up to you. We talked about We talked about challenge. So I think that the tasks themselves are trying to be achievable but challenging. But what I wanted to point out is the extend sections in the workbook where stronger students can build on the top vocabulary and take a little bit more. So this might draw from the listening or reading activities, or it might just add more to a language set. There's lots of ideas for fast finishers, for mixability, blah, 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 in the teacher's book as well. And finally, helping students to express themselves. So there's lots and lots of discussion in the course. In the second edition, we've tried to make the discussion questions meatier. So that might be that they're challenging students to really give their opinions, or they're set up as debates, so people have to take different sides. But we think that there are really topics that will make them think and help them voice their own opinion. Okay, we're nearly finished and we're running so short of time. Question to you. What makes you enjoy teaching a course? Good topics, interesting topics. Yeah, where you learn new things yourself. I think that's really important, because teachers get just as jaded as students do. That's lovely, Lorena. Seeing students growing inside a new language. Playing games, great. Okay. Well, these are some of the things that were most mentioned when we spoke to teachers throughout the research, actually, for this course. Basically, the teacher enjoys it when the students are engaged, when the students enjoy it. Also, when it's easy to use, easy to adapt, where it's very easy for you as a teacher to find what you need. With a clear pathway to success, Nina, yeah, absolutely. When the students are making progress, and there's a kind of variety of interaction types. So I think you'll find all of these come through very clearly in the course. Let's look at it in a little bit of detail, less detail because we're running short of time. So very quickly, we've got 8 levels going from B1 to C1, as we mentioned before. We hit all of the Cambridge exams on the way. For a student, you've got the course book, either as print or as an e-reader plus, as a digital. And in either case, there's an app comes with it that we mentioned. So that's the audio and the video from the course book. It's the audio from the workbook, plus some additional practice of vocabulary and at the lower levels grammar. There's the workbook material, again, either in print or in digital on our Pearson English portal. And then for the exam levels, there's the exam practice book. So that's 2 tests plus lots of help and guidance. For you, the teacher, you have the print teacher's book. Now, the print teacher's book has a code which gets you access to all of the digital material for teachers. Just to carry on up here, there is also a teacher's resource book which has the test package and the photocopiables in print if you need them, and there are some CDs, but I think these days most people prefer digital. So the portal is your one-stop place for everything. Test package, presentation tool, if you're using the online practice, the teacher dashboard. So the front of class tool, this is basically where you'll come to. You've got 2 options, lessons and resources. In lessons, you'll see each of the units has its own screen bucket. And when you click on one, you'll be taken to each of the pages within the lesson. So you can show just the student's book, just the workbook, or both. This is both. So this is student's book, workbook. And then when you click teach, you'll be taken to the first activity as an interactive activity. Every single activity in the print book is done as a separate screen, separate interactive activity. So you just do them, show answers one by one, show them together, all the things you'd expect, and you can click through each of the activities here. If you want to look at the page that the students have, you can click page view and it'll go to the page directly, and you can easily click back to activities. So that's the presentation tool. The resources, which is the other side of the main tab at the top, has everything that you as a teacher will need. So the message really is that it's just one place, has everything: audio, video, grammar presentations, teacher's notes, assessment, and so on and so on and so on. So everything is in one place. I was going to show you a sample unit, but we don't have time. So I think I'll just turn it over to questions. I was going to tell you about what I loved about working on this course. Mainly it's experiencing all the people. So from the teachers and students we met researching, to the team that have been working on it, to the researchers and the Pearson reps. It's been such a pleasure to work on, and I think that I know I'm very proud of the course, and I think the whole team is. I think we've ended up with something which is very comprehensive, a very comprehensive package, and I think it looks fantastic. So I really hope you agree. Are there any questions? Anything you'd like to ask? I know we've answered some along the way, but. Glad to hear you think so, Nina. I hope you like the reality. Okay, well, if you do have a question, keep typing. If not, then just to say thank you so much for coming. As I say, you will get your certificate of attendance and a link to the recording within a week. And then if you're interested in the other course we talked about, Gold, then my colleague Jo, who's the publisher for that one, will be here next week to talk about it. And if you do come up with any questions in the meantime, then please just feed them to your Pearson representative. They will eventually come back to me and I'll answer. Oh, that's not a question. Thank you very much then. Take care. Bye-bye.